I stood on the marble stage of the Miller Estate ballroom, my work boots echoing against the pristine floor as 200 of Manhattan's elite stared at me in stunned silence. Behind me, the projection screen still displayed that humiliating photo of me covered in dirt and fertilizer, the image my own brother had just used to publicly declare me mentally unstable. My mother's champagne glass had frozen halfway to her lips. My father's face had gone from smug satisfaction to ashen horror in the span of 3 seconds. Because I had just done the unthinkable. I had seized the microphone from my brother's trembling hands, thrown a stack of legal documents onto the stage, and announced to everyone in that glittering room that I now owned everything. The estate, the land, the Miller family legacy, all of it, mine. And I was giving them 30 minutes to pack their personal belongings and get out. But before I tell you how I brought an empire to its knees, before I show you how a girl who spent her days elbow-deep in soil became the woman who owned the very ground her family walked on, I need you to do something for me. If you believe that sometimes the underdog deserves to win, if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever dreamed of the moment when justice finally arrives, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because you are not going to believe where this story goes, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if your family treated you like dirt. Literally, because that is exactly what happened to me. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. 9 months before that Christmas Eve confrontation. 9 months before I became the owner of a $12 million estate. Back when I was still trying to earn my mother's love. It was a cold March morning when I first realised my family did not just dislike me, they despised me. I was 28 years old, running my landscaping business, Verdant Horizons, from a greenhouse I had built with my own hands, and a small business loan I had fought tooth and nail to secure. No family money, no connections, just me, my crew, and an obsession with creating living art from plants and soil. That morning, I had just signed a contract with the Vanderbilt estate for a $200,000 garden renovation. My biggest client yet. I was covered in potting soil, my hair was escaping from its braid, and I probably smelled like the organic fertilizer we had just mixed. But I was happy. Genuinely bone-deep happy in a way I had not been since my grandmother died when I was 16. Then my phone rang. Mother. I almost did not answer. Our conversations usually left me feeling like I had been dipped in acid. But some pathetic part of me, the little girl who still remembered when Mother used to smile at me before my brother was born, made me swipe to accept the call. She did not even say hello, just launched right in with that crisp, dismissive tone she reserved, especially for me. Jade, I need you to bring that bonsai tree to the estate. The $8,000 one you have been cultivating. We are hosting the Ashworth family this weekend, and I want to display it in the conservatory. You can drop it off at the service entrance. And for heaven's sake, shower first. I cannot have you tracking your work stench through my home. Not our home. My home. I had not lived in the Miller estate since I turned 18, and my father made it clear that my presence was an embarrassment to the family. But this was not new. This was just Tuesday with Mother. So I said yes, like I always did, and told her I would be there by Saturday afternoon. She hung up without thanking me. Also, not new. I should have seen the warning signs, should have recognised the pattern. But I was still operating under the delusion that if I just tried hard enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, they would finally see me as worthy. As family. God, I was so naive. Saturday came, and I loaded the bonsai into my beat-up Ford pickup. That tree represented 6 years of careful cultivation. It was a Japanese black pine trained in the Cascade style worth far more than the $8,000 price tag suggested. I had planned to enter it in a national competition, but Mother wanted it, and some desperate part of me thought this might be the gesture that finally earned her approval. The drive from my greenhouse in Yonkers to the Miller estate in the Hamptons took 2 hours. 2 hours of rehearsing what I might say to Mother imagining a conversation where she actually asked about my business, my life, anything about me at all. I was still lost in that fantasy when I pulled up to the main gates, the gates that immediately closed in my face. I sat there confused as the intercom crackled to life. Security's voice bored and dismissive. Service entrance is around back, miss. Main gates are for family and guests only. Something cold settled in my stomach. I was family. I was Genevieve Miller's daughter. But to everyone at this estate, to my own mother's staff, I was just the help. I drove around to the service entrance, that cold feeling spreading through my chest like frost. My brother Merrick was waiting for me. Tall, handsome, perfectly groomed Merrick in his tailored Ralph Lauren sweater and Italian leather shoes. He was leaning against the service door, and when I climbed out of my truck, he did not even try to hide his contempt. Well, well, the prodigal daughter returns, still driving that piece of trash I see. His eyes raked over my work clothes, my practical boots, the dirt under my fingernails despite my shower. Tell me, Jade, do you enjoy wallowing in filth? Is it some kind of fetish? I had learned to ignore Merrick's barbs. 28 years of practice. I moved to the truck bed to unload the bonsai, but before I could, Merrick strode over and deliberately kicked my toolbox off the tailgate. Tools scattered across the pristine cobblestones, pruning shears, soil pH testers, grafting knives, everything I needed for my work. Oops, he smirked. Better pick those up, sis. You are good at grovelling on the ground, right? It is your natural habitat. I stood there looking at my scattered tools, feeling something crack inside my chest. But I did not cry. I never cried in front of them. Instead, I knelt down and began gathering my tools one by one while my brother watched and laughed. This was my family. This was what I had driven 2 hours to experience. I had just finished collecting the last of my tools when I heard her heels clicking across the cobblestones. Mother. She looked like she had stepped out of a Vogue editorial. Cream cashmere pearls, that severe blonde bob that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly mortgage. And her expression when she looked at me, like I was something unfortunate she had stepped in. Jade, you are late. And what on earth are you wearing? She did not wait for an answer. Actually, never mind. I need you to do something else this evening. We are short-staffed for the dinner service. Put this on. She thrust a garment bag at me. It is a server's uniform. You will work the kitchen and help with dishes. The Ashworths cannot know that my daughter is. She waved a hand vaguely at me. This. I stared at the garment bag, then at her. Mother. I run a business. I have 20 employees. I just secured a 6-figure contract. I am not your maid. Or her face went cold, hard, the face I had seen countless times growing up, usually right before she locked me in my room for being difficult. You will do as I say, Jade, or you can leave. And if you leave, do not bother coming back. Ever. You are already an embarrassment. Do not make it worse. Merrick was grinning. Actually, Mother, maybe we should just let her go. She clearly does not appreciate everything we have given her, all those years of tolerating her presence. Given me, I had not taken a dime from them since I turned 18. Not for college, not for my business, nothing. But before I could respond, Mother turned on her heel and walked away, taking it as a given that I would obey. Merrick followed, but not before making a show of holding his nose as he passed me. I stood there in that service courtyard uniform bag in my hands, and something inside me finally started to wake up. Not the good kind of waking up, the dangerous kind. But I was not ready yet, not quite. So I did what I had always done. I pushed down my anger, swallowed my pride, and told myself it would be okay. It was just one night, just a few hours of serving drinks and washing dishes. Then I could go home to my greenhouse, my real life, and forget this happened. Except I did not go inside to change into that uniform. Something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the sound of laughter drifting from the main house. Familiar laughter. my father's booming guffaw and Merrick's sharp cackle. I found myself walking toward that sound, drawn by some instinct I did not fully understand. The conservatory, the room where Mother wanted to display my bonsai. I could see through the glass walls, see the warm light inside, see my father and brother standing beside a projection screen. And I could hear them. The conservatory had terrible acoustics, something I had pointed out when I was 14 and was ignored. Sound carried. Preston Miller. My father was running through what looked like a presentation, practicing maybe for the Ashworth dinner. And I heard my name. Now, regarding the family trust situation. He clicked to a slide, and my heart stopped. It was a photo of me. Working in my greenhouse dirt, smeared on my face hair wild, completely absorbed in my work. Someone had taken that photo without my knowledge, and they had used it for this. As you can see, Merrick said, his voice dripping with false concern, our sister has shown increasing signs of mental instability. She has rejected normal society, choosing instead to, and I quote from her own social media, commune with the earth. She lives in squalor, associates with day labourers, and has expressed what we believe to be delusional ideas about her own importance. The slide changed. More photos. Me loading mulch, me teaching my crew proper planting techniques, me laughing with Sarah, my greenhouse manager, both of us covered in compost after a bag had split. Normal work photos twisted into evidence of my supposed insanity. My father nodded gravely. After consulting with our attorneys and a psychiatrist, we believe the most compassionate course of action is to have Jade declared mentally incompetent. This will allow us to take control of her grandmother's trust fund, which Jade currently controls but is clearly unable to manage responsibly. The trust, as you know, is the last substantial liquid asset in the Miller portfolio. With it, we can settle our outstanding debts and restore the family's financial standing. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Grandmother's trust, the only thing she had left me, the only family member who had ever truly loved me. $2.5 million held in trust until I turned 25, then released to my control. Money I had not touched because I was building my business on my own merit. Money I had planned to use to expand verdant horizons to create something meaningful. They were going to take it, not just take it, but destroy my reputation in the process, declare me insane, make me a legal incompetent. And why? Because my father had gambling debts, because Merrick had spent his trust fund on cocaine and sports cars, because the Miller family, for all their glittering prestige, was broke. Merrick laughed. The best part, she will never see it coming. Jade has spent her entire life trying to win Mother's approval. She will sign whatever we put in front of her if we just promise to finally love her. Pathetic, really. They kept talking, working out the details of their plan, but I had stopped listening. I was backing away from the conservatory, my work boots silent on the grass, my mind spinning. 30 years of trying to earn their love. 30 years of taking their abuse, their dismissal, their contempt. And this was how they saw me. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, but as an asset to be liquidated. A problem to be solved. I made it back to my truck before the shaking started. Not tears. I was beyond tears. This was pure rage, white hot and clarifying. I sat in the driver's seat, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, and I made a decision. Not the decision to fight back. Not yet. First, I needed to know if what they were planning was even legal. I needed help. I pulled out my phone and called Arshad, the one person I knew who might have answers. Silas Crane. My grandmother's attorney, the man who had set up her trust, who had told me at her funeral that if I ever needed anything at all, to call him. I had never taken him up on that offer. Until now. He answered on the second ring. Jade Miller, I was wondering when you would call. That stopped me cold. You knew they were planning this. I knew your family's financial situation has become dire, and I know the terms of your grandmother's trust. She made provisions, Jade, provisions for exactly this scenario. Your grandmother did not trust Preston or Genevieve. She wanted to protect you, but she also wanted you to be strong enough to protect yourself. He paused. Are you ready to hear what she left for you? What she really left for you. I listened as Silas explained. Grandmother had not just left me money, she had left me weapons, information, leverage. She had spent the last 5 years of her life quietly documenting every financial misdeed, every shady dealing, every secret shame of the Miller family. And she had given it all to Silas, with instructions that if my parents ever tried to take my inheritance, he was to give me access to what she called the Oak Root files. Oak Root. Named after the old oak tree on the estate where grandmother and I used to sit together, where she had told me I was the only one in the family who had real roots, who was connected to something deeper than money and status. The files included something else, I show you. Documentation of my father's gambling debts. Proof that he had taken out multiple mortgages on the estate without my mother's knowledge. Evidence that the Miller family fortune, that $12 million estate in the Hamptons, was actually leveraged to the hilt. My father owed $7 million to various creditors and had been using creative accounting to hide it from everyone, including his wife. And here is the interesting part, Silas said, his voice taking on a sharp edge. 6 months ago, I set up a shell corporation called Oak Root Holdings. We have been quietly buying up your father's debt at a discount. Creditors are always happy to sell bad loans for 50 cents on the dollar. Which means, Jade, that as of 2 weeks ago, you own your father's debt. All of it. $7 million worth. And that means you can foreclose. You can take the estate, all of it. I sat in my truck in the service entrance of my family's estate and felt the world tilt on its axis. Why? Why would you do this? Because your grandmother asked me to. Because she knew this day would come. She knew they would try to destroy you to save themselves. And she wanted you to have a choice. You can walk away, Jade, take your trust fund, build your life, and never look back. Or, he paused, or you can activate Oak Root. You can foreclose on the estate, take everything they value, and show them exactly what kind of woman they raised. The choice is yours. I closed my eyes, saw Merrick kicking over my toolbox, saw Mother's disgusted face, heard my father's plan to have me declared insane, heard Merrick's laughter as he called me pathetic. Activate Oak Root, I said. Do it now. Over the next 6 months, I watched the trap close around my family. Silas worked behind the scenes, filing the necessary paperwork, ensuring everything was legal and airtight. I kept running my business, kept growing verdant horizons, and pretended I did not know what was coming. My parents and Merrick were so confident in their plan that they did not even try to hide it anymore. Mother called me every few weeks, asking me to do menial tasks, treating me like hired help. Merrick would send me mocking texts about my pitiful little gardening hobby. Father ignored me completely, as always. But I was building something, an empire in miniature. My business exploded. The Vanderbilt contract led to others. The Ashworth family, the very people my parents had been trying to impress that night, had heard about my work and hired me directly. Turned out they had been looking for me at the estate, had asked my mother if I might be available for a consultation, and Mother had lied and said I had moved to California. But the Ashworths had found me anyway through my business website, and they did not care that I worked with dirt. They cared that I was brilliant at what I did. By December, Verdant Horizons had 20 full-time employees, a dozen major contracts, and a reputation as the premier landscape design firm in the tri-state area. I had been featured in Architectural Digest. The New York Times had done a profile on me. I was successful beyond my wildest dreams, and my family had no idea, because they never asked, never looked, never cared. And then came the invitation. Cream, cardstock, elegant script. The Miller family requests your presence at the annual Christmas Eve gala. I almost laughed when I opened it. They were still going through the motions, still pretending we were a normal family. The invitation went on to specify that I should use the service entrance, and that casual attire was not acceptable. Even in their invitations, they managed to insult me. I texted Silas, "Is everything ready?" His response was immediate. "The foreclosure notice is signed. I have the sheriff standing by. The new ownership documents are filed with the county. As of noon yesterday, you own the Miller estate. I am just waiting for your signal." I sent one word back tonight. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. I could have worn a designer gown. I could have shown up dripping in diamonds, playing their game, showing them I could be one of them. But that was not the point. The point was that I did not want to be one of them. I did not want their world, their values, their poison. So I wore what I always wore to important meetings. A sharp black suit tailored to perfection, paired with my oldest work boots. The boots that had walked through 1,000 job sites, that had climbed hills and knelt in gardens, that had been with me through every success of the past 6 months. I did not go to the service entrance. I drove right up to the main gates, and when the intercom crackled, I said clearly, "Jade Miller for the Christmas gala." The gate swung open. The guard had probably assumed I was a guest with the same last name. He did not recognize me. Why would he? He had only ever seen me slinking around to the service entrance. I parked my truck right in the circular drive between a Bentley and a Rolls-Royce. My beat-up Ford looked gloriously out of place. I grabbed the leather portfolio containing all my documents and walked to the front door. My boot struck the stone steps with satisfying thunks. The door was opened by a server who did not recognize me either. I walked right in. The ballroom was everything Mother loved. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a string quartet playing in the corner. 200 guests in evening wear sipping champagne networking. The elite of New York society. And there at the center of it all were my parents. Mother in crimson silk, father in a tuxedo, both of them holding court like nothing was wrong, like they were not drowning in debt and planning to destroy their own daughter to stay afloat. I stood in the doorway and I watched them. Watched Mother's brittle smile, Father's loud laugh. Merrick was there too, his arm around some blonde model type, probably another woman he would discard when he got bored. This was their world, and in a few minutes I was going to burn it down. A server approached me with champagne. I took it, but did not drink. I was waiting for the moment I knew was coming because Silas had hacked into Merrick's laptop, and I had seen the presentation he had prepared. The grand finale of the evening. The moment when they would publicly humiliate me one last time. It came after dinner. Father stood up, tapping his champagne glass for attention. The room quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, thank you for joining us on this special evening. As many of you know, the Miller family has a long tradition of excellence, of maintaining certain standards." His eyes swept the room, landing on me for a split second before moving on. He did not recognize me in my suit. Tonight, I want to talk about legacy, about what we pass on to future generations, about the importance of mental fortitude and sound judgment. That was Merrick's cue. He moved to the podium with a laptop connecting it to the projection screen. The lights dimmed, and there it was, my face blown up 10 feet tall. That photo of me in my greenhouse covered in dirt, laughing at something Sarah had said. Merrick's voice, smooth and concerned. "This is my sister Jade. Some of you may remember her. She was always a bit different, a bit troubled. And I am sad to report that her condition has deteriorated significantly." The presentation continued. More photos, more false concern. Merrick painted a picture of a delusional woman living in squalor, mentally unstable, incapable of managing her own affairs. The guests were eating it up. Whispered conversation, knowing nods. Poor Preston and Genevieve having to deal with such a difficult child. Then Father stood again. "It breaks my heart to say this, but we have been left with no choice. for Jade's own protection, and for the good of the family, we will be seeking legal guardianship. We believe this is the most compassionate course of action for someone who can no longer care for herself. He raised his glass. To family, to doing the difficult but necessary thing. The room raised their glasses. To family. I set down my untouched champagne, and I started walking toward the stage. My boots echoed on the marble floor. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. People started to notice, started to stare. The woman in the black suit and work boots walking with purpose toward the stage where Preston Miller stood. Merrick saw me first. His face went from smug satisfaction to confusion, to recognition, to horror in the span of about 2 seconds. Jade, what the hell are you doing here? Security. I did not stop walking. I climbed the 3 steps to the stage. Merrick moved to block me, to physically push me back down. Big mistake. I had spent 6 months hauling 50-pound bags of soil, directing crews, building an empire. I was strong in ways Merrick could not imagine. When he reached for me, I sidestepped. He was off balance, overconfident. He stumbled forward straight into the dessert table, sending champagne glasses and plates crashing to the floor. The room gasped. I took the microphone from the stand. The feedback squealed. 200 faces turned toward me. I saw Mother's expression, saw the moment she recognized me, saw the rage and humiliation blossom across her perfect features. I saw Father, frozen, his mouth slightly open. I saw the Vanderbilts in the 3rd row, saw them recognize me, saw them start to smile. You know, I said, my voice amplified through the ballroom. My brother is right about one thing. I do work with dirt. I spend my days covered in soil and fertilizer. I cultivate living things. I build gardens that will outlast all of us. And yes, I wear work boots instead of heels. I drive a truck instead of a Mercedes. I have calluses on my hands. But here is what my dear family forgot to mention in their little presentation. That dirt built an empire. I pulled the first document from my portfolio. I will keep this simple. 6 months ago, Oakroot Holdings purchased the outstanding debts of Preston Miller, all $7 million worth. I held up the papers. These are the promissory notes. These are the foreclosure notices. And this is the new deed to this estate. My name is on it. As of noon yesterday, I own this house, this land, everything in it. The silence was absolute, then chaos. Father lunged toward me. Security, get her out. This is absurd. She is insane. I held up another document. This is the psychiatric evaluation I had done last week by Dr. Margaret Henshaw, who I believe is considered the foremost expert in her field. She has concluded that I am, and I am quoting here, perfectly sane, highly functional, and demonstrating excellent business acumen. The only delusion in this room belongs to my family. Silas walked in right on cue, Sheriff Rodriguez beside him. The sheriff was a friend, or as close to a friend as a sheriff could be. I had redesigned his daughter's school garden last year pro bono after the school's budget was cut. He owed me nothing, but he believed in justice. And this was justice. Sheriff Rodriguez addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I need to make this official. He turned to my father. Preston Miller, you are hereby notified that you are in violation of foreclosure proceedings. You and your family have 30 minutes to gather personal belongings and vacate the premises. Any resistance will result in immediate arrest for trespassing. Mother found her voice. This is insane. She cannot do this. This is our home, our family legacy. She turned to the guest, desperate. Someone call our attorney. I cut her off. Your attorney already knows. Silas has been in contact with him for months. Everything is legal, Mother. Everything is documented. You tried to have me declared insane so you could steal my inheritance. Instead, you lost everything. Funny how that works. Merrick had picked himself up off the floor. He looked at me with pure hatred. You conniving bitch. You planned this, all of this. I looked at him, really looked at him. No, Merrick, you planned this. You and father and mother. You planned to destroy me to save yourselves. I just refused to be destroyed. Big difference. The guests were starting to move. The Vanderbilts came up to me smiling. They shook my hand, asked for my business card. The Ashworths were next, then the Blackwells, then the Hastings family. One by one, the elite of New York society turned away from my parents and toward me, because they did not care about old money or family legacy. They cared about success, about power, about who was winning. And tonight, that was me. Mother tried one last desperate play. She fell to her knees in front of me, grabbed at my suit jacket. Jade, please, I am your mother. You cannot do this to your own mother. We are family. I looked down at her. I could have been cruel, could have thrown her past actions in her face. But I was not them. I gently removed her hands from my jacket. You are right, I said quietly. Family should not do this to each other. Family should not humiliate, should not exploit, should not try to destroy. You taught me what family is not, and that is probably the only valuable lesson you ever gave me. I turned to the sheriff. They have 30 minutes, only personal items. No art, no furniture, nothing that belongs to the estate. And I want security footage of everything they take, just to be sure. I walked off that stage, through that ballroom, and out the front door. Behind me I heard crying, shouting chaos. I did not look back. I had spent 30 years looking back, hoping for love that was never going to come. Tonight, I was looking forward. 3 months passed, 3 months of legal wrangling of my family, trying every trick to reverse what I had done. They hired expensive lawyers. They gave interviews to tabloids painting me as a villain. Merrick tried to show up at my greenhouse twice, demanding money, threatening me. I had him arrested for trespassing both times. Mother sent letters alternating between vitriol and pathetic pleas. I did not read them. Silas handled everything legal. I focused on my business. And it boomed. The story got out, of course. You cannot foreclose on your own family without it making headlines. But it did not hurt me. If anything, it helped. Turns out a lot of people, especially women, especially people who had been underestimated and dismissed, saw themselves in my story. Verdant Horizons became more than a landscaping company. It became a symbol. I had corporate clients calling from California, from London, from Dubai. By March, I had to hire a director of operations just to handle all the requests. I moved into the Miller estate. The ballroom, where they humiliated me, became my corporate headquarters. The conservatory, where I overheard their plot, became my showcase greenhouse. The property, where I was told to use the service entrance, became the crown jewel of my empire. And my family father manages a small restaurant in Newark. Merrick works retail at a big box store in Queens. His model girlfriend's long gone. Mother gives piano lessons to children trying desperately to maintain dignity. They lost everything. Their house, their social standing, their reputation, and in trying to destroy me completely, they destroyed themselves instead. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of what used to be my mother's bedroom. Below me, my crew installed a new garden feature. Architectural Digest was featuring us next month. We had clients booked to 2 years in advance. Verdant Horizons was not just surviving, it was thriving. My phone buzzed, a text from Silas. Your father is asking if you will meet with him. Says he wants to apologize. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then I typed back. No. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. I did not hate them anymore. Hatred takes energy, and I had better things to do. I did not forgive them either. Forgiveness is for people who are sorry, and they were only sorry they got caught. I simply removed them from my life the same way I would remove a diseased plant from a garden. Completely, carefully, permanently. Here is what I learned. Your family can be toxic. Your blood relatives can be the people who hurt you most. You do not owe them anything just because you share DNA. You owe yourself safety, respect, and the chance to build a life that reflects your values. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. Or, in my case, to stay and make them walk away instead. I built my empire from dirt and I am proud of it because dirt is real. Dirt is honest. You put good things in, you get good things out. You cannot fake it or manipulate it. Maybe that is why I was always more comfortable with plants than with people. Plants do not pretend to love you while plotting your destruction. But there are good people out there. People like Silas, Sarah, Hank Sheriff Rodriguez. People who saw me for who I was and respected the work I did. Those people are my real family now. Not the family I was born into, but the family I chose. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever been told you are not good enough? Have you ever been used, manipulated, dismissed? What did you do about it? Drop a comment and tell me your story, because you are not alone. And if you are still in that situation, let my story be your permission slip. You can leave, you can fight, you can build something better. You deserve better. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about choosing yourself, about building the life you deserve, about refusing to be small just because someone else is uncomfortable with your bigness. As for me, I am standing on my balcony, drinking coffee from a mug that says boss. My boots are planted firmly on the ground I own, the ground I earned, the ground I claimed, and I have never been more at home.